This is a Gear Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, Mr. Perez, and you're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, brought to you exclusively on Gear Network. Listen in.
How is it going, everybody? Episode number 76 of the Better Live Than Dead podcast is live in your ears as you listen.
Episode 76.
We're back after a week off, after our schedules painfully could not match up at any point in time. I had free time. Lewis was busy. Lewis had free time. I was busy. I'm Ryan Wolf, at Wolf BLTD on Twitter, on the line. Mr. Perez, at MRLG Perez on Twitter. How have you been? It's been a few minutes.
Dude, I'm good, man. I'm good, thank you. Been busy. Work has been keeping me on my toes, and traveling a lot with work, and so it's been fun. It's been busy. And yeah, last week, man, you had free time. I did it. I had free time. You did it. It just never worked out. So, but hey, it's okay. We're back now.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and it's good to take a week off too,
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm currently on my way back from Buffalo, where I conducted a couple trainings today. And for the last, 5 miles, I've had this car pacing me, and it's 2 girls. And I just looked over because they were, pulling up a little bit and stopping, so they were, right next to me. They're pulling up a little bit. So I just looked over just to see what's going on, and the girl just mooned me.
Ha ha ha!
But, yeah, there was a lot more going on than just the moon. I pretty much just saw everything. But, that's hilarious. I haven't been mooned since I was, 13.
This is a fantastic way to start the podcast.
That's hilarious. Thank you very much, people. Appreciate that. You.
I want to start off in basketball. We've got a little news from this whole podcast. It's going to be kind of like a time machine. It's going to be a little bit of last week and a little bit of the week before, obviously because we missed last week. But we don't want to miss the news. First off, Houston.
Hold on a real second, though. Hold on for a quick second. For those of you wondering, yes, she did have a nice butt.
Okay, thank you for that.
No problem.
Houston acquires Josh Smith from the Clippers. Apparently that wasn't working out. So why not just go back to Houston where you came from? I guess that, went from Atlanta to Houston to the Clippers, back to Houston. If Houston thinks that'll solve their problems, good on them, I guess. Congratulations. But I don't think that's going to solve their problem.
Probably not.
Cleveland fires head coach David Blatt. Tyronn Lue is the new head coach. Is there any way, Lewis, that this wasn't a LeBron James-led firing?
Is there any way that it was not?
That's what I was asking. No. It was total. This was total. They were 30-11, and they fired their coach. This was totally LeBron.
Dude, listen. He took you to the championship last year. You have the best record in the Eastern Conference, and you fire your head coach? Come on. It was so LeBron. And people who are saying that it's not LeBron, y'all are blind. Open your eyes. It was completely LeBron. Tyronn Lue is a former player. LeBron has said it multiple times he prefers to be coached by people who used to play the game. And I don't think they like the fact that David Blatt comes from a European-style basketball system. People have said that David Blatt had a hard time getting accustomed to the NBA style. Really? They went to the championship last year.
Where did he struggle to adjust?
Right. You got the best record in the Eastern Conference. Stop yourselves.
Looking down at Miami.
They said that the blowout by Golden State was kind of the final straw.
That
really?
Makes sense.
Because everybody's getting blown out by Golden State right now.
Just lost. I was just about to say the Spurs lost, but did Popovich get fired? No.
Right. The Spurs just lost by 30. You know who still got a job? Greg Popovich.
The Golden State Warriors are on another level this year. They're on another planet. It's not even fair how good they are at basketball.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous right now.
Story out of Miami this week, or last week, one of the two. Ray Allen apparently has been courted multiple times by the Heat organization, and he has declined their advances every single time to come out of retirement and play for the Miami Heat. Does this surprise you at all, Lewis?
A little bit. I mean, I know the Heat's looking for another piece to help them out because they're actually playing pretty decent ball right now. But Ray Allen, you know, he's old. He probably wants to just enjoy his retirement.
And last but not least, this just came out a few days ago. Los Angeles Clipper forward Blake Griffin, who was already out with I think a hamstring or a quad injury, fractured a bone in his hand, apparently punching an equipment manager in the face.
Yes.
What's up with that?
He was set to come back the next day, and then he punched him in the face. I don't know. They got into an argument. Blake has apologized, but apparently, I mean, I don't know. I can't really see Blake just throwing blows to throw blows. So maybe they got into a little altercation, and maybe it wouldn't even have come out if he had it injured his hand. It is not out for like another month.
Yeah, and I mean, he apologized and said it was a lapse in judgment, which I get it. You know, stuff happens, but like, dude, those are your money makers, dude, and you're gonna and you're gonna do that and just put yourself and put your career on the line because I mean, he could have destroyed something in his hand and that could have been it for him.
Right. That's why I kind of feel like, you know, obviously you don't want those type of things to happen and you don't want to see your star player getting embroiled and those type of things. But, you know, like if you watch Blake Griffin, if you see the commercials, if you see him on shows, like he seems to be a really chill dude. So I'm more curious as to exactly what happened to make him want to throw a blow.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with this as time goes on. That's for sure. Because I'm sure this is not the last we've heard of it.
Right.
I'm reading Twitter as we go along. 25 years ago today was the wide right field goal. That's cute.
That was 25 years ago today?
25 years ago today.
Wow.
January 27th, 2016 is when we're doing the podcast.
I remember watching that game.
Also, speaking of years, it has been a full calendar year since Golden State has lost at home. Fantastic for them.
That's crazy.
I want to move over to soccer real fast. There's been some rumblings.
Real quick, before you move over to soccer, let's talk about something that happened positive this week with a sports player. I don't remember where the location was, but there was some officers who were called to a house because they were complaining about kids playing in the street being loud. When the cop got there, they were just playing basketball. So instead of disbanding them and making them go there in individual houses, the cop actually played basketball with them. Shaquille O'Neal thought that was so cool with the cop that a couple of days later, him and the cop went back to play ball with those guys again.
Nothing wrong with that. Good old Shaq, man. That video, that original video with the cop was great too.
It was the cop dunking and stuff.
Well, how they lowered how he's like lower the rim for me so I can dunk, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then when the cop left, he goes, "You guys aren't doing anything wrong. Just keep it quiet."
Yeah. Like good for the cop, first of all.
Before.
Yeah. Good on the cop and good on Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, we've all had that happen before in our younger ages where the cops will show up and say, "Look, you guys aren't doing anything wrong, but people are mad. Keep it quiet, and you'll be fine. Just don't make me come back."
And it was the middle of the afternoon. Like, why are you complaining?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Don't bitch about that.
Middle of the afternoon or like a Saturday. What do you do?
Well, hey, real quick, I want to talk about soccer because it is very quick, but it's a developing story. It's a local story too, which is why I'm bringing it up. Apparently, the Rochester Rhinos are set to get new ownership. I heard something about it. Yeah, I heard something recently. Didn't hear any more details, but that's something to keep in the back of your head. The Rochester Rhinos may be receiving new owners, which would be huge for the franchise, who just came off of a I think they're the USL. They just won the championship.
Yes, good for the Rhinos.
And they're gonna, and apparently the ownership wants to not only buy the team and keep them steady in Rochester, but they want to re-up with the stadium, Salem Stadium, and stay there for a very long time. I mean, it's not the best in neighborhoods, but it's an okay stadium. I mean, I've only been to one game there years ago, but maybe I'll go see some more soccer now that I'm a bigger soccer fan, because I enjoy watching soccer and I understand it more. Maybe I'll go to a few games.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. I'll go.
Dude, let's do it. Let's do. You and I will go to some soccer games. We'll talk about it on the podcast more.
I'm down with it.
We can extend broaden our horizons.
Let's make it happen.
I want to move over to Major League Baseball, kind of break up the continuity here of the smaller sports to the bigger sports. We'll just go right to baseball today. Just a couple signings and re-signings. First off, D. Gordon, a fantastic move for a young franchise that is getting better and better and better. Obviously, we saw this offseason they made a couple big moves. They acquired Wei-Yen Chen. They hired Don Mattingly as their head coach. So they're making progress in the right direction. They have some young talent there like Giancarlo Stanton and other guys. I know like Christian Yelich is there as well. I can't remember all the names, but I remember a couple of them. Cut me some slack here. But they're a young and up and coming team. If they can put it together, guys like D. Gordon will be the key cogs in the machine there for sure.
Absolutely.
The Kansas City Royals have made their yearly move that people scratch their head about now, and then come August, they'll be like, damn it, Kansas City knew something and was onto something, and we weren't. They signed pitcher Ian Kennedy. Of the Yankees, of the Padres, of the Diamondbacks. He's not a bad pitcher. He's fallen on some tough times as of late, but we've seen what Kansas City's done in the past with pitchers. I mean, they took Ryan Madsen and took him from being out of baseball for a year to being a dominant middle reliever on a World Series champion team. I mean, that's what they do.
That's true.
So maybe Ian Kennedy becomes an ace of that staff for a 2 or 3, but either way, that's going to benefit that team greatly.
That's a good move for them.
The Baltimore Orioles end the stalemate with first baseman Chris Davis. They were signed him to a massive, I think it was $7 and $149 million for Chris Davis. Someone that they need in their lineup bad. I mean, Chris Davis is better off probably somewhere else because it gives him a better chance to win. But Baltimore needs him bad, and Baltimore probably was willing to pay him the most. So Chris Davis back in Baltimore, not a surprise, but it'll be interesting to see if they actually try to build a franchise around him or just depend on him for everything.
All I know is, dude, we're in the wrong. We should have went into baseball.
If podcasting was a business, maybe we could get paid. Like if podcast was like a professional business, I know people get paid to podcast, but they've already when they started getting paid for podcasting, they were already famous.
Right.
Like Chris Jericho didn't become a wrestler by being a podcaster; he became a podcaster by being a wrestler. So we're doing it the hard way.
Stone Cold, same thing.
Exactly. Detroit makes a big splash. They signed outfielder Justin Upton to a gigantic contract. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to pay off for Detroit because Upton's numbers have kind of been up and down. But he's a young guy who can hit for decent average, put some power behind it. I mean, if it works out for them, it could give him a nice little middle of the order pop in Detroit. But I mean, I don't know. I was kind of shaking my head at that one because I don't know if Justin Upton's the guy I would invest, $100 million in or not.
Yeah, he did get a good amount of money. He is a good player, though. I mean, he's still young enough to be able to make strides to improve things that he's lacking at. So yeah, maybe it will, maybe it'll help him out.
We'll see. I mean, Miguel Cabrera makes a lot of people better around him, and maybe that's the case with Justin Upton. Is you put Upton in the 3-hole, you put Cabrera in the 4-hole, and Upton sees better pitches because they don't want to pitch to Cabrera.
Right.
By the way, I think today for the Red Sox at least, so we're roughly about 60-plus days away from opening day. Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. And
I know the Red Sox are 68 days away.
Yep. pitchers and catchers should report, I think, 2 weeks from now?
Yep, it's getting close, man. Baseball is back, almost back. It hasn't really been a long winter. I mean, winter has flown by because it's been so mild here, but it's nice to see baseball coming back around.
I agree with you.
Especially because the Red Sox are a little better. I mean, personally for me, the Red Sox are a little better. They can't be much worse than they were last year, but the increased I can't think of the word. The increased competition around the league has me excited. Like, can Toronto? This is stuff we'll talk about in a couple weeks. But like, can Toronto repeat? Can Kansas City be a 3 years in a row? Can they make the World Series? Will the Red Sox be better? Will Arizona make a splash in the West now that they have this gigantically crazy offseason, stuff like that? But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We're still talking free agent signings here. Fernando Rodney, a potential reclamation project for the San Diego Padres. He is signed, sealed, delivered. I'm assuming he'll be their closer in San Diego. But if that move should pay off in spades for them, because Fernando Rodney can still pitch. He just needs to pitch to situations, I guess, because he being used too much lately, and it's hurt his stock. I mean, there was a time in Tampa Bay when Rodney was on the mound. You don't want to face him. Now it's kind of,
right.
You have a shot against him.
Right.
Also, San Diego signed shortstop Alexei Ramirez, which should end their years long search for a consistent shortstop. I know it's like the Red Sox with Nomar. When the Red Sox traded away Nomar Garciaparra, they needed to trade him away, but they haven't been able to find a solid shortstop since then. But obviously now they have Xander Bogaerts. But since I think it was Khalil Green, since Khalil Green has left San Diego, they've just gone through shortstops like a cheap pair of shoes. So we all know Alexei Ramirez. We know Alexei Ramirez well from his days in Chicago. Whenever I see Alexei Ramirez, I think of the play-by-play announcer. I forgot his name right now. I just had it. Hawk. Whatever the hell his name is. Hawk. That's all I remember is Hawk. I think Harrelson, Hawk Harrelson or something like that. It's like Hawk Harrelson or something like that. I'll look it up. Whenever Alexei Ramirez makes a great play, he just screams Alexei, and that's all I can think of in my head is Alexei. When I hear Alexei Ramirez, his name is Hawk. They call him Hawk Harrelson, but Ken Harrelson, the play-by-play announcer for the Chicago White Sox. Whenever he yells Alexei, that's all I can think of. It's like a soccer call for a shortstop.
I was going to say it sounds like a soccer call.
It's pretty good. That guy can be a homer, but he's got some good ones. Last but not least, the Mets make arguably one of the biggest moves of the offseason by re-signing outfielder Yoenis Cespedes. Now here's the deal: Yoenis Cespedes reportedly almost signed in Washington with the Nationals, which would have created an interesting flow of things because they have way too many outfielders. Too many cooks in the kitchen essentially. But the Mets signed Cespedes to a 3-year deal for $75 million. Here's the thing about it, though. After one season, Cespedes can opt out. So essentially, it's a 1-year, $27 million deal that he's betting on himself. $27 million for 1 year to bet on himself. And if it works out for him, either they pick up the options and he makes $75 million in 3 years, or they decline the option and he's a free agent again, still in the prime of his career with pretty solid statistics behind him, and he can go elsewhere and get a very big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad deal if you're Cespedes. You're still young enough to go other places and make a splash. And make a splash to the Mets, they might sign you for more, or you stick around for $75 million. That's $75 million for 3 years. It's not a bad little payday.
Nope. And the thing about it, too, is that the Mets have been penny pinching for a very long time. I mean, the Wilpons are known for that. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Bernie Madoff lost a ton of their money in that big Ponzi scheme years back. But they've not wanted to spend a ton of they've not wanted to spend a lot of money. So to see them re-sign Cespedes because they know that's what they need to do to remain relevant in the standings at least. I mean, they'll remain relevant on the field because their team is really good. Cespedes does not make or break that team, but he'll make that team a lot better.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, over to the National Hockey League really fast. Edmonton, the Oilers, they extend Cam Talbot for a couple years. I think it was a 3-year deal. He's at this point in time, as of recording time, he's 9-15-3 with the Oilers, a 9.14 save percentage, 2.60 goals allowed per game. He looks like he's going to be the goaltender of the future for now for the Oilers, at least for the next couple of years. So good on that for picking up Cam Talbot in a trade and recognizing, this guy is going to be the future of our franchise for now in goal. So let's at least lock him up before it costs way too much money. Also, last thing in the National Hockey League for now, and we'll talk more hockey next week because they've got the whole week off coming up because of the All-Star break. So we'll get caught up on the National Hockey League here sometime soon. I do promise you. But the big news last week was All-Star Western or Pacific Division. I apologize. Western Conference Pacific Division captain John Scott of the Arizona Coyotes. I almost said Phoenix. The Arizona Coyotes. He's an enforcer. I don't know how much you pay attention to hockey in your spare time, Lewis, but this guy's an enforcer, and fans made a joke by voting Scott as a captain because they thought it would be funny and it'd be great, whatever. The team played along with it. Scott played along with it. Then when he was voted captain, the NHL behind the scenes reportedly asked Scott a couple times to decline and move on. But here's the thing. I believe Scott gets paid extra to go to the All-Star game. Plus, this isn't going to happen, every day. This is a one-time thing for him. So what happened was he was traded to Montreal in a deal for Jared Tenorti. Now, this apparently was something where Arizona or the NHL, it's unclear who, reportedly requested to have Scott thrown in the deal so he could be pulled out of the All-Star game because obviously Montreal has no use for him, so he'll go to the AHL and be locked in St. John's for the rest of his contract, which is the rest of the season, I believe. But after the trade happened, there was a lot of backlash in the media, on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you turn. People were pissed about it because the NHL essentially screwed John Scott over. So give it a couple days, and the National Hockey League says, hey, you know what? John Scott's going to be in the All-Star game. And that's the right move. I mean, I understand like they need it like last year. I don't know if you remember this, but Latvia loves hockey. They love their hockey players. Last year, Latvia voted Zemgus Girgensons of the Buffalo Sabres into the All-Star game as the leading vote getter for a rookie. He had like 12 goals at the time or something like that, 10 or 12 goals.
I remember that.
And the NHL was like, well, we can't let this happen again. And then this year, it happens with John Scott. So now they're like, well, we're not going to let this happen again. We're going to change the way the voting happens for the All-Star game, which I get that. That makes more sense. But the thing that, makes me mad is the NHL tried to cover this up and tried to brush it under the rug and treat everybody like it never happened. And that was bad on the NHL. And I'm glad that they realized that they look like a bunch of idiots. Because they do.
Yeah, you can't
that's
do
just
that.
sad.
If it's fan voting and the fans vote someone in, you got to let that person go. You can't try to be like, well, we don't like this guy because he's an enforcer, so we're going to do all types of stuff to make sure that this doesn't happen. That's Bush League.
And it's funny, too, because John Scott's taking it in stride, and he actually said when they said, what will you wear in the All-Star game? What will you wear for the skills competition? All that stuff. Well, because the All-Star game, they have special jerseys, but for the skills competition. And they were like, the NHL's like, well, he's going to wear a plain black jersey. He's like, I'll wear a St. John's jersey because that's my current team. Like, and they're beautiful jerseys, too, so.
Nice.
But
I'm
now
glad
we're going to
taking it in stride.
Yeah, I mean, you have to because it's something where the NHL, essentially his career has been turned upside down. His wife is pregnant with a child. I'm not sure if I think it's just a child. I'm not sure if it's twins or just a single child. But she's still pregnant. She's very pregnant, ready to pop. And he has to move to St. John's. Like, that's crazy. That's horrible. But the NHL, like every other sport, is a business at the end of the day.
Yep. So messing with a dude's money when he's about to have a full family, that's cold-blooded.
Oh, absolutely, dude. So now we're going to move over to the UFC. Dillashaw and Cruz finally fought. And
Yes.
it was an absolute thrill to watch as a UFC fan, as a very big UFC fan. I personally thought Dillashaw did enough to retain. The judges didn't. The judges gave Cruz the title in a split decision. We'll see this fight again sometime soon. I'm not sure if it's going to be immediately or in the future, but we're going to get this fight again. It's going to be fantastic. But here's the deal. After the fight, it was brought to Dominic Cruz's attention that Uriah Faber wants a shot at the belt. Or Uriah Faber has earned another shot, arguably his last one because the other two he's lost. The other couple fights that he's had for the title, he's undefeated in the UFC, but he's winless when he fights for a title. Now,
which is crazy.
It's absolutely nuts because he's one of the best ever in mixed martial arts, but he can't get over that hump. So
right.
Cruz didn't seem like after the fight he wanted a third fight. Dana White's open to it. Obviously, Uriah's open to it. It would be fantastic to see those two renew their rivalry in the octagon. I'm down for it. I'm not sure about you, Lewis, but I would be first in line for that pay-per-view.
No, I think it would be awesome. I think that would be a great fight. If Uriah Faber could get over that hump and actually perform like Uriah Faber in the championship match.
So you're on board because you cut out for a second.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely on board.
Now we're going to move over to UFC 196 because there's some big news on that card. Sorry, I yawned, and that was kind of an awkward transition. I hope we get Cruz. I hope we get Cruz Faber, and if you know what, I want to see Faber Dillashaw because they used to train together, and
right.
and Faber Dillashaw and said, don't come back because you're just what you're doing is BS. Go to your new camp and we'll fight sometime. So that would be nice to see as well. UFC 196, unprecedented. For the first time ever, UFC pulls a pay-per-view and moves it to Fox Sports 1. And that's because the main event of Cain Velasquez and Fabricio Verdum is off. Now, originally, Cain Velasquez pulled out with an injury. It happens. We've seen it happen hundreds of times. But after that, it was Stipe Miocic versus Verdum for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. The next day, Fabricio Verdum pulled out. Then John Jones comes up and says, hey, I'll fight Miocic for the heavyweight championship if it's not the interim title, because obviously it would be an interim title. And the UFC kind of balked at that, but I think they balked at it. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything about it, but the fight has been bumped down to Fox Sports 1. I mean, it would be great to see John Jones move up to heavyweight, but I think we're still a couple years away from that.
Probably. He's really good where he's at, so I don't know if you want to move and mess around with what you have, especially since he's, coming back still, but I don't know. I mean, I think no matter what division John Jones is in, he's going to dominate.
I think once John Jones wins the belt back, once he wins the title back, I think he's going to start. He'll probably fight a couple guys, maybe one or two fights, and then he'll look toward moving up. Especially depending on what Conor McGregor does, because if Conor McGregor wins 2 belts at once, I would assume that John Jones is going to do the same thing. Where John Jones is going to say, "I'm going to be the light heavyweight and heavyweight champion at the same time. I'm going to try that."
Right.
And I'm sure if it goes good for McGregor and the numbers are great, I'm sure it'll happen for Jones. I mean, why not?
Right. And the numbers are probably going to be really good because McGregor is one of those type of athletes that just you want to see fight.
Well, same with John Jones too. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. You want to see McGregor talk crap. You just want to see what's going to happen.
Anytime big names or anytime a UFC fight's happening, I want to see what's happening. But yeah, those big names make me want to watch more for sure. Get me all jacked up and stuff, and we get all talking about it, and we lose 25 minutes just by talking about one fighter. But that's what guys like Conor McGregor do to us. They are. It's hard to get their name out of people's mouths because he's just one of the best we've seen in a long time, and we've seen a lot of good ones. Same with John Jones, one of the best we've seen in a long time.
That's true.
Moving over to the National Football League now, where we're going to wrap this guy up. But we've got some news to talk about. Like I said, it's been a little while. We've got 2 series of playoffs to talk about. We've got a Super Bowl to discuss. The Cleveland Browns are going to go with no offensive coordinator. It appears that new head coach Hugh Jackson is going to do that himself. He hired some passing game coordinators and run game coordinators, but he's going to call the offensive plays, it appears. Tennessee hires. I know it's a very weird move. It's just weird to think about that. Like, you're not going to have an offensive coordinator. That's odd to me. But hey, you know what? To each his own. You know.
That is a little different.
Tennessee hires. Well, they don't really hire. They promote interim head coach Mike Mularkey to full-time head coach. This, to me, reeks of a one and done. It seems like Tennessee knows they need to be bad for another year, get another piece of the puzzle, let Marcus Mariota get a year older and a year more comfortable in the NFL, and then you fire Mike Mularkey and you bring in the next coach, the next guy.
Yeah, it's possible.
I mean, we saw this offseason. There were no big names out there. I mean, you saw, like, New Orleans. New Orleans was going to fire Sean Payton, and then they took a look at the market and were like, yeah, we're not firing you. It's pretty bad out there.
Right. Yeah, the only name that was really, out there was Chip Kelly.
And, I mean, he's even kind of damaged goods because he screwed himself over with the GM role. He needed to be with a strong general manager, which, like I said before, I think San Francisco is a good landing spot for him because they've got Trent Baalke in that front office that will get good talent. You just need a good coach, or a coach that can get the best out of his players like Jim Harbaugh did.
Right.
Tampa Bay makes an interesting hire. Interesting only because of how it works out. Defensive coordinator, or ex-Falcons head coach Mike Smith is now the defensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Funny because head coach Dirk Cutter was Mike Smith's offensive coordinator in Atlanta, so it's funny how that thing works out.
Yeah, really.
Ex-Indianapolis Colt and New England Patriot wide receiver Reggie Wayne announces his retirement. It's not going to come anytime soon, but Lewis, do you think Reggie Wayne ends up in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe he's a Hall of Famer. He was an incredible wide receiver. So I don't see why he won't. I believe he can at least be considered.
I think it'll take time because we've seen the logjam of wide receivers. But right. I think he's a Hall of Famer, absolutely. I mean, in a year, not even in a year, but in a football decade of just offensive football, like passing and catching, that's been the focus of football. Like, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what, like, Adrian Peterson probably will retire with a ton of yards, but you get a guy, if a running back retires with 12,000 yards, is he a Hall of Famer in this era of passing? Like, they don't run, not a lot of teams run the ball a lot, so if you get, hey, quarterback threw for 5,000 yards, average 5,000 yards a season, but I just ripped the scab off my arm. 5,000 yards a season, but the running back, he rushed for 1,300 yards every year consistently for 10 years or something like that.
Right. Someone like Adrian Peterson is a Hall of Famer.
Oh, absolutely. I think in today's NFL, Reggie Wayne's a Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
If not for his appearance on Parks and Recreation, his actual NFL career was also pretty good too. The San Diego Superchargers, the Chargers, we'll just say because they are in limbo right now. The Chargers hire Ken Whisenhunt to be the offensive coordinator. Panthers defensive end Jared Allen reportedly was out for the season with a foot injury, broken bone in his foot, but sounds like he's going to play in the Super Bowl, which we'll talk about shortly. Tennessee hires offensive coordinator Terry Robisky. Again, another hire that makes it seem like it's a one and done. He's a 60-some-year-old wide receivers coach who's getting an offensive coordinator job for the first time ever. Philadelphia hires Frank Reich to be the offensive coordinator and Jim Schwartz to be the defensive coordinator. That's big news for them if they're looking to turn that thing around quick. Cleveland wide. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he got fired from San Diego, and he lands on his feet in Philadelphia. I mean, can't argue.
No.
Cleveland wide receiver. Also, by the way, Jim Schwartz, fantastic hire for the Eagles. They need a no nonsense guy there. Jim Schwartz will do that. I mean, he still wants to be a head coach. if he rebuilds the Philly defense like he rebuilt the Bills like he made the Bills defense better, it may not be far for him to get another head coaching job, but it's a step in the right direction for Jim Schwartz, certainly.
I agree with you.
Cleveland wide receiver Josh Gordon, remember him? The young wide receiver who's got a lot of talent, applies for reinstatement. Looks if he comes back, that's very, very big for Cleveland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That would be really big for them. Now they just need to find someone to throw up the ball.
Well, hold that thought. I'm going to go let my dog out real fast. So you can just talk to yourself for a second, and I'll be back in about 15 seconds, and we'll talk about that.
Sure. I could talk to myself for about 15 seconds. Or I could just, sit here and talk about absolutely nothing. But the Cleveland Browns are a mess. They were a mess last season.
Okay, I'm back.
We'll have to see if signing, him coming back will help Cleveland at all.
Who are we talking about?
Cleveland Browns.
No, I'm saying who specifically, though. You say you were talking about signing somebody.
No, I meant bringing him back if he gets reinstated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's talk that they may draft a quarterback high like Jared Goff or something like that from Cal. But you need weapons. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast these days. Like we were talking about with Reggie Wayne, it's a passing league. It's a quarterback-driven league. You can't, like I was talking to Paul Wagner, our buddy from Between the Buried and Me. We did the Super Bowl preview. Cheap plug. Check it out, BLTDsports.com. It's the BLTD ExtraCast 13. We did a Super Bowl preview, and he was mentioning, we talked about the Bills for a couple minutes, and he goes, I'm not sure if Tyrod Taylor is the guy because the NFL is such a quarterback-driven league that you need an elite quarterback talent to be where you are, to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, you look at, and we'll talk about this in just a moment. We'll go back and talk about it, but the Super Bowl, for the first time ever, it's 1 versus 1, first overall pick versus first overall pick. In the conference championships, 3 out of 4 quarterbacks were first overall picks. So you can see the game trending in that direction still. I mean, we are in a passing offensive era. Like, you need to be able to pass the ball to win football games. And it's still there's still more evidence that we're still trending in that direction even more because, yeah, you may get a decent quarterback, but you need that guy. You need a Cam Newton or a Peyton Manning to get you there. So we'll see what happens with the Bills. I mean, that's and with the Browns too. The Browns will probably draft a quarterback high. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Johnny Manziel likely going to be cut or traded. Most likely cut because the trade value is just non-existent there. But likely get cut. Probably there's a lot of rumors that, like I said, RG3 or Johnny Manziel could end up in Dallas. That would be interesting to see. But shockingly, 2 big names we all thought that would be very good NFL players are both on the chopping block for different reasons. But it could be a very interesting offseason coming up here for sure.
Absolutely. And as a Cowboys fan, I don't want neither one of those guys at the Cowboys.
Well, I think Robert Griffin, if he has a good team around him and he's not expected to do every single thing and he can get some mileage under his belt and learn the game and all that stuff, I think he'll be fine. I think the problem was with Washington is he was in over his head and had a head coach that didn't know how to deal with him, like on the field, obviously because he blew his knee out in that playoff game, which he shouldn't have been playing in. But that was the end of it. And then, the reason he sat this year was because they would have owed him, I think, $16 or $17 million if he had gotten hurt. There's no need to play him then if you're the Washington front office, and they didn't. They went with Kirk Cousins, and now they're going to give Kirk Cousins tens of millions of dollars.
Yes, they are.
A continuation of the Los Angeles saga. We know the Rams are going to L.A. The Chargers have been kind of wishy-washy about the whole thing, but apparently in the last week they have applied for the Los Angeles Chargers trademark, which would obviously give away their plans. But here's the weird part about it all, Louis. I hope you're paying attention. St. Louis, the Rams moved from Los Angeles to St. Louis back to Los Angeles. The Chargers moved from San Diego to Los Angeles. The Raiders wanted to move from Los Angeles to Oakland, back to Los Angeles, back to Oakland, want to go back to L.A., but that's not happening. So the Raiders may end up in San Diego.
I had not heard that. Come on, are you serious?
I'm serious, yeah, because there's San Diego and there's San Antonio, because Alameda County won't build a new stadium for the Raiders. They will not. They just won't do it, which is why we're in this case in the first place. Couple years ago, the Davis, I don't remember if it was Al or if it was his son Mark, that went to San Antonio and spoke with people in San Antonio about moving the Raiders out to San Antonio to play in the Alamo Dome. But there's a strong possibility the Raiders could move to San Antonio or move to San Diego. It's really who can come up. I would assume who can come up with the funding. Will Oakland build a stadium? Will San Diego build a stadium? Or will San Antonio provide some cash to move the franchise out there? So we'll see what happens there.
Well, hey, if they go to San Antonio, they've got to change their colors.
If they go to San Diego, they wouldn't change their. I don't think they'll change their colors wherever they go. They'll still be black and silver. But
I know, but if you look at the Spurs, they're black and silver too.
Yeah, absolutely. It would fit perfectly in San Antonio.
Right. That'd still be weird to say though, San Antonio Raiders.
I mean, it would fit after a while, that's for sure. But looking at the Buffalo Bills now, first off, Tyrod Taylor named to the Pro Bowl, which is pretty cool. And they've also had Richie Incognito and Eric Wood were also added to the Pro Bowl as well. And big news, very big news out of Buffalo. They become the first franchise in National Football League history to hire a woman assistant coach full time. So good on you, Buffalo, for breaking some ground finally and making a positive change in the football world by bringing women onto a woman onto a coaching staff full time. And I mean, people are going to say they're terrible things because people are terrible, and frankly, that's the human race. The human race is horrible. More likely than not, you're going to find terrible people. But I'm very happy to be a Bills fan. I was very pleased to be a Bills fan when I heard that this was happening. So I'm like, you know what? It's not very often my sports teams, and just being selfish for a second, my sports teams do cool stuff like this first. And I'm glad, in years to come when there's a woman coordinator or a woman head coach someday that, they'll say it started with the Buffalo Bills. That's really cool to me.
Right. Good for them.
Now moving over to the playoffs. Moving over to the playoffs, sir.
Playoffs?
We're going to take a step ahead to take a step back, first off. Thomas Davis, linebacker for Carolina, broke his forearm in the NFC Championship game. Says he's going to play in the Super Bowl. Had surgery the evening after the game, I believe it was. Crazy, crazy stuff, but apparently he's ready to go.
Yeah, when it's something like a forearm and you get the surgery, and it's your first time at the Super Bowl, you don't want to miss that. So I would play too.
Did we ever talk about the divisional playoffs? I don't think we did. We missed that one. That was
last week. We missed last week.
We can talk about it now if you want. Well, I'm just going to re-mention the divisional playoffs because I feel like we didn't hit them. I know we hit the wild card games, but the 16th, so last week would have been. Yeah, we didn't talk about it, so we'll talk about both series. So first off, divisional playoffs real quick. New England took care of Kansas City 27-20. Green Bay and Arizona, what a game that was. Aaron Rodgers with first off with the 60, it was like a 60-yard completion, improbable, and then he completed the Hail Mary with time expiring to pull within one. They kicked the field goal. Then Arizona, it goes to overtime. The coin doesn't flip. Arizona gets the ball, goes downfield for a touchdown. They win 26-20 in overtime. The next day, Carolina, who just had a fantastically large lead, 31-0 at the half, almost blew it, win 31-24. They get Seattle out of the playoffs. They move on to the NFC Championship game. And Denver defeated Pittsburgh 23-16, moving on to New England, moving to take on New England. Now, last weekend, we'll start off in the NFC. Boy, what a game that was, right? Carolina destroys the Cardinals, 49-15. Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't even pretty. It wasn't even pretty. It wasn't even nice. They just rolled over Arizona.
But that shows you how talented and how strong of a franchise this Panthers team is this season, that they can roll over the second best team in the NFC. They doubled them up in points. I mean, they scored 3 times more points than them. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. It was like Arizona wasn't even there. It looked like they were playing a Pop Warner team. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and Cam Newton continues to be spectacular for the Panthers. Their defense is spectacular. I mean, it's just.
But when you create 7 turnovers, I mean that's That's
Newton had 335 passing yards, 47 rush yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. The defense was solid, like you said. It's just if they play like that in the Super Bowl, it's over. But before we move to the Super Bowl, real quick, Denver defeats New England 20-18. New England goes for 2 after they score a late touchdown, and it didn't happen. Didn't work out for them. Steven Gostkowski had 2 field goals. He made 2 field goals. The 2 field goals he attempted, he made, but the proved costly because if he had kicked the extra point, there would have been a 1-point deficit. New England could have tied it, taken to overtime, and then it's a completely different ballgame. But looking at just looking back at the game, I mean, Denver got to Tom Brady, and Denver put Tom Brady on the ground a lot, and that was and that's what they had to do.
Yeah, I think they sacked him like 6 times.
I think it was 4, and he had 2 picks.
Okay, yeah. But
they hit him.
If you look
hit him as much as they could.
Yeah, if you look at that game, you're right. Gostkowski missed that extra point. That was big because it's not like Denver played spectacularly, and the Patriots were able to almost tie that game. So even though they were hitting Brady and they picked him off twice, like they were still right there in the thick of it at the end. Yeah, I mean their defense just the Patriots front line could not stop the Denver Broncos.
So now looking forward on February 7th, the Super Bowl 50 in Santa Clara, California, at the 49ers Levi Stadium. 49ers. It's Brett Favre Stadium, the Levi Stadium, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a very interesting game, and I say this because we know Peyton Manning is going to retire. They've been dropping hints. He said to Bill Belichick on Mike, this may be my last rodeo. It's been a pleasure. Eli said to on Thursday or on Wednesday, which is today, time of recording, that this may be Peyton's last game. I mean, it's no secret, but I want to get your thoughts first off on what the Denver Broncos have to do right in order to win. Like, what's one key factor for you in this Super Bowl to see the Denver Broncos come out victorious?
Before the game, when the Carolina Panthers are on the way to the stadium, they got to hire someone to hit the team van into a ditch.
I don't think it works like that.
So the Panthers can't be there. If they don't do that, they're not winning the Super Bowl.
I think for me, on a serious note, I think for me it's one of those things where if Denver's defense, like I said before on the extra cast with Paul Wagner that you can hear over at Better Live Than Dead, BLTDsports.com, but I'll re-mention what I was saying. I feel like Denver's defense needs to be absolutely flawless to win to pull out that victory because Peyton Manning has been average, mediocre at best this postseason. And I mean, what do you expect? He's a wounded duck at this point. But
yes.
You need to take pressure off of Peyton Manning. If you try to put the game too much on Peyton Manning's shoulders at this point, he won't. I don't think he'll be able to do it. Now, then again, he could have an old school Peyton Manning game where he throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, and we can all be in awe and wonder where that Peyton Manning was. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Denver's defense needs to fast and furious. Hit Cam Newton as much as you can. Keep him in the backfield as much as you can. Take his legs away from him if you want to be successful. Because if you let him run, just start chasing him because you're not going to catch him. As for Carolina,
I agree with you there. The only problem is, like, if you look at the Patriots game, they were able to do that to Tom Brady, but Brady's a pocket passer. He's not going to get out. He's not going to run on you. If you come up the middle on Cam Newton, he can take 2 steps to be by you so quick.
Well, absolutely, but you can also keep a linebacker. You can also keep a linebacker on him and just as a spy. So if he runs, he gets a 2-yard gain.
The problem with that is if you put a spotter on him, that means someone's going to be open somewhere, and Cam has a good enough arm to hit that person. So I agree with you. That's what Denver has to do. Are they going to be able to do it? I'm having a hard time believing it.
Now, as for the Panthers, I think they need to get on the board quick. They need to get their offense rolling as soon as possible. If Carolina's offense struggles to score, because I feel like they run on a lot of confidence, where if they can score early or they can put a lot of offensive pressure on you early, you're in trouble. But if they can't do that, they may start doubting themselves, and then it's going to fall all downhill from there. But, I mean, personally, I predicted a 30-13 Panther victory. I think Carolina's going to take care of Denver, end Peyton Manning's career. Cam Newton will become a superstar even more than he already is, stuff like that, But I'm fairly certain that Carolina will take care of this game.
I do too. My only concern is that the NFL will want to see Peyton Manning go off on a high note, get his second ring, right off into the sunset. So my concern is we're going to see some really questionable calls by the refs. Hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's something to keep an eye on for sure.
I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but you never know. Peyton Manning has been an ambassador for his sport for years. He's had a heck of a career. He's been to 3 Super Bowls. He's won 1. So who knows what's going to happen?
That's a good place to end the podcast. I would like, before we go though, what is a prediction for you? We'll talk a little more about the Super Bowl next week, but I want a prediction from you right now.
Carolina by 2 touchdowns.
Okay, that's fair. We'll talk more about the Super Bowl next week. The only reason I'm wrapping this up so soon is because my throat is starting to hurt, and I left my water bottle at my brother's house. So my water bottle will be back here shortly. But we've been going for almost an hour now. So is anything else you want to discuss this week, Lewis?
No, man. If you want to wrap it up, we can wrap it up, bro.
Well, we can do that, and then we'll get caught up more next week and talk more just life stuff, sports stuff, whatever you want to talk about. But
so. I will tell you a quick funny story.
Okay.
On my way home, I stopped at a cigar shop that I stop in Buffalo on a regular basis with the intention to buy 2 cigars. That's important to the story.
How many did you walk out with?
2 cigars. I bought a box and a half. So I walked out of there with 32 cigars.
Wow, I mean, I'm sure you got a good deal.
Oh, dude, I got a freaking phenomenal deal. So, yeah, that's really the only reason I did it, because I got a phenomenal deal.
There you go. Hey, by the way, real quick, everybody, coming up shortly, it looks like we're going to start doing a pre-order for more BLTD shirts. The design got completed today. Going to pass it around to some people and see what they think. So we'll have some more BLTD merchandise coming out. It's all going to be a pre-order thing, so we'll do a pre-order for a little while, make sure everybody who wants one gets one. It's going to be very cheap because I'm only going to charge cost. I don't want to make money off this. I'm just here to make T-shirts and allow people to support the podcast and support the website as well.
Very cool.
So we'll get that. I'll send it to you in a little bit, Lewis. But it's a very nice design. It's very cool. It's very it's very good sports stuff. But
looking forward to checking it out.
I'll send it to you once the podcast is over here. But I want to say again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you letting us have a week off because we lose our minds if we do this every single week. I've learned. So if we take some time off, catch a breather, let the sports reset. We're making it through the winter. Episode 76. This has been episode 77. Obviously next week. Next week we may have to do it on a Friday. Well, we have to do it on a Friday because I only have Friday off. I get to work 9 to 5 next week and learn how to do FiOS. So that'll be fun.
Cool.
So we'll get in touch about Friday and we'll do the podcast then. We'll do like a mini Super Bowl preview too on the podcast. But thanks everybody for tuning in. On the line again, Lewis, Mr. Perez, at MRLG Perez on Twitter. I am at Wolf BLTD. You can follow us at BLTD Sports, BLTDsports.com, Facebook.com/BLTD Podcast. Also, make sure, like I said, check out the BLTD Extracast 13 with myself and Paul Wagner, Between the Buried and Me, BLTD Senior Music Correspondent, and resident Panthers fan. We talk about the Panthers, the Broncos, the Bills, and some stuff in between. It was about 38 minutes and change, so it was a really good talk with Paul. It's always a good talk with Paul. But besides that, just got to say one more thing: we're better live than dead.
You're not.
We'll catch you same time, same place next week, my friends. Thank you for tuning in, and we will, like I said, we'll talk to you very, very soon.
Peace.